My wife, Sarah, told me she was infertile, so we adopted 2 children from an orphanage. I treated them as my own, pouring my heart into raising them, only for them to shove me down the stairs. Now my real dad can finally be with Mom openly, one of them said. That's when I learned they were actually Sarah's children with her first love. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn, back at the moment Sarah walked through the door with the 2 kids. This time, I wouldn't be the fool raising someone else's children. Come on, call him Daddy. My wife smiled, pushing the 4-year-old twins towards me, her expression gentle. I felt a wave of disorientation. I knew these children well. In my past life, after Sarah brought them home, I treated them like my own flesh and blood, working myself to the bone to give them the best education. But when they reached high school and started showing signs of puppy love, I wanted to talk to them seriously to keep them focused on their studies. Instead, the children I had cherished for 15 years pushed me down the stairs. Before I died, I heard the boy Leo say, "It's better if he dies. That way, our real dad can be with Mom without hiding." His sister Annie added, "Yeah, brother, don't worry, I'll give you an alibi." After my death, they collected a huge life insurance payout, and I finally saw the twins' biological father, Sarah's childhood sweetheart, David. When Sarah first brought the kids home, she'd insisted they take her last name. I hadn't objected then, but now I saw it clearly. She didn't want her first love's children carrying my name. That family of 4 lived happily ever after on my money, while any mention of me was just a sigh about my bad luck. Seeing the determined look in Sarah's eyes now, I knew she was certain I'd agree. We'd met through an arranged setup, but for 3 years, I'd catered to her every whim. I believed that even without love, marriage meant responsibility, which is why I'd been so devoted to the children she brought home. The kids looked cute now, but if you looked closely, you could see them struggling to hide their aversion to me, a stranger. It made sense. David had disliked me from the moment Sarah and I married. I'd thought it was just prejudice, but now I realized it was resentment over me stealing his woman. David hadn't been living in our city, maybe Portland, these past few years. He must have been living elsewhere with the children. "Honey, are you not okay with adopting these 2? Sarah frowned. "Look how pitiful they are. If we don't take them, they'll go back to the orphanage, barely fed or clothed. You wouldn't want them to see hope only to have it snatched away, would you?" "Of course not. Actually, I have a surprise for you too." I called towards the bedroom, "Lily, come on out." As soon as I spoke, a 5-year-old girl clutching a doll emerged. She was adorable but shy, hiding behind me when she saw the 3 strangers. "Daddy, who are they?" Hearing the word, "Daddy," Sarah shrieked, losing control. "Daddy? Who is she? Why is she calling you Daddy?" "Well, you haven't had children all these years, and my mom loves kids. We just happened to meet Lily. Do you even care about me as your wife? Making such a huge decision like adopting a child without discussing it with me?" I didn't respond, just looked pointedly at Leo and Annie. Sarah's furious expression froze. She stammered, "How can this be the same? They are what?" The words caught in Sarah's throat. "Anyway, I don't agree." She glared at Lily with disgust, as if the little girl were something dirty. "Fine," I said lightly. Lily clutched my pants leg nervously. I patted her head reassuringly. "Then send your 2 back where they came from. I've been the breadwinner all these years. There's no reason for me to raise children that aren't mine." Sarah stared at me in disbelief, shocked that the usually agreeable, easygoing me could be so firm. She'd grown accustomed to a life where someone else provided. She had promised her first love that their children would have a normal life. Her parents certainly wouldn't help raise them, so she couldn't afford to lose this meal ticket husband. Her tone softened. All right, 1 more child doesn't make much difference. Let's just raise her too." Leo and Annie, though only 3, were already masters of reading people. They consistently rejected Lily's attempts at friendship. After a few times, Sarah even started verbally abusing the 5-year-old. "We don't have enough rooms. Maybe we could convert the small bathroom for Lily?" I looked up. "What do you mean not enough? We have 2 spare bedrooms and a study. Just convert the study." "But Annie might need a room for piano or dance practice later," Sarah countered, sounding entitled. I scoffed inwardly but kept my face neutral. Either you take your 2 kids and move out, or we convert the study. Perhaps my recent change in attitude was too drastic, because Sarah didn't dare argue further. Still, I could see her resentment. Later, during renovations, she suggested giving the largest guest room to Leo. I've already compromised so much. You won't refuse me this time, right? She sidled up, trying to act cute, making my stomach turn. The biggest room goes to Lily. She's the older sister. She should have the bigger room. Sarah flew into another rage, pointing at me and wailing in front of the construction workers. Lily, tell me the truth. Is she your illegitimate daughter? You weren't like this before. Why did everything change when she arrived? The workers pretended to work, but their ears were pricked, eager for gossip. If you want to talk like that, I think those 2 look quite a bit like you. If you weren't infertile, I wouldn't have needed to adopt. My casual tone dripped with sarcasm, hitting Sarah like a physical blow. Her lips moved, but she just forced a dry laugh and dropped the subject. And so, our life as a family of 5 began. In my previous life, I adored those 2 kids. I worked hard, scrimped and saved to give them the best, enrolling them in extracurriculars from age 4. Leo and Annie weren't keen, often crying to Sarah. But Sarah would subtly mention how other kids were learning everything, how ours couldn't fall behind or they'd lack competitiveness later. Yet, when the kids pleaded with her, she'd put on a pained, helpless expression, saying, "It's all Daddy's decision. You know Daddy earns the money. Mommy's opinion doesn't count." From then on, whenever the kids had piano lessons, they'd glare at me resentfully. I used to think they were just young and would understand later. Now I saw Sarah had played the good cop, getting her kids piano lessons while making me the bad guy forcing them. Lily was very sensible. She helped with chores around the house and asked if I was tired after a long day. Whenever she did, Sarah would roll her eyes and mock her for sucking up at such a young age. Lily was 5 now. I asked if she wanted to join an activity class. She said she'd do whatever Daddy decided. When Sarah heard, she immediately insisted I couldn't show favoritism. The other 2 had to be enrolled too. Honestly, funding classes for 3 kids was a strain, but this time I agreed readily. Sarah was thrilled, not caring that she hadn't bonded with her own kids yet, or that they were only 3 and could barely hold chopsticks. On their first day of piano, Leo and Annie threw tantrums, refusing to stay. Young children hate sitting still, especially for tedious exercises. Lily, however, was no trouble. The teacher praised her repeatedly. Leo and Annie cried, saying they didn't want to practice anymore. But seeing Lily get praised, Sarah's eyes widened, and she scolded her own children for being difficult, insisting they continue. That's when I stepped in, handing them ice cream cones. "They're still so little," I said gently. "Don't push them so hard. Maybe they'll like it when they're older." Hearing this, the twins abandoned their mother instantly, nodding furiously and hugging my legs, declaring, "Daddy's the best. Mommy's mean." Sarah couldn't believe her eyes. Furious, she grabbed Leo and Annie and started spanking them. The sound of children crying echoed through the building all evening. I waited until Sarah had mostly finished before intervening. "Don't go too far. They're just kids. Why are you hitting them like that?" That night, the twins cried, refusing to let their mother comfort them. They wanted me to sleep with them. Of course, I wouldn't share a bed with the culprits who caused my death last time. So, I regretfully told them their mother didn't want me putting them to bed. For the first time, I saw genuine malice towards Sarah in the twins' eyes. Their rebellion was futile, though. They still had to attend piano lessons with Lily. Every day when I came home, I'd find Sarah fiercely drilling the twins on music theory and finger exercises, while Lily sat quietly nearby, her little fingers tapping imaginary keys in the air. From then on, whenever I was off work and took them to class, I'd firmly escort Lily into the classroom. Then, facing the twins' pleading eyes, I'd reluctantly let them skip class, taking them out for treats and fun instead. Each time, I'd warn them, "Don't tell Mommy, or Daddy won't be able to take you to class anymore." The twins would uniformly shake their little fists, promising, "It's our little secret." Perhaps because I always indulged them, they naturally assumed I preferred them over Lily. After all, in a child's eyes, the one who provides fun and treats is the good guy. I asked Lily if she ever felt it was unfair. She just shook her head, looking at me gratefully. I know Daddy means well. Bringing me home was already more than I could ask for. As my bond with the twins strengthened, Sarah grew uneasy. As the kids got older, I gradually added more activities. But I always made it seem like Sarah's idea, prompted by her frustration that the twins showed zero progress in piano after years. She started wondering if they lacked talent and considered other options. In my past life, with my constant supervision, both kids, especially Annie, quickly showed piano talent. Annie even appeared on TV at 8, becoming a child prodigy. But this life, I often took them out to play and made excuses when they practiced poorly. They became bolder. More classes meant more resentment from Leo and Annie towards Sarah. Thanks to my indulgence, both kids gained significant weight. Sarah watched daily as Lily grew taller, slimmer, and prettier, while her own children became increasingly round. Leo, especially, was heading towards spherical. So, at meals, Sarah would pile Lily's plate high with fatty foods like pork knuckles and chicken legs, while giving Leo and Annie only vegetables like carrots and greens. Spoiled by me, the twins couldn't accept this differential treatment. They threw tantrums at the dinner table every time. Lily would quietly give her meat to the twins. After meals, I'd sneak them snacks, explaining, "Mommy doesn't mean it. Groceries are expensive now. She's just trying to save money for the family." These two ungrateful brats heard this and thought, why should they save money by cutting their food? Over time, the two kids became increasingly mischievous. One day, unnoticed, they mixed hair removal cream into Sarah's shampoo. When I heard the scream from the bathroom, Sarah had only a few sparse hairs left on her head. I didn't hide my amusement, which only fueled Sarah's fury. She wasn't stupid. She immediately guessed who did it. That night, the house echoed with children's cries again. But this time, seeing the look in those little wolves' eyes as they stared at Sarah, I knew she would eventually be destroyed by her own children. Sarah started wrapping her head constantly. The hair removal cream was potent. After 3 months, her hair still hadn't grown back much. Her energy was now focused on hair growth remedies, leaving less time to monitor the twins' schoolwork. I increased their allowance. The two started skipping school daily, wasting time at arcades near the school. As for Lily, she asked for more tutoring classes herself. I naturally supported such a motivated child. So, whenever Lily brought home nearly perfect report cards, Sarah's face would twist uncontrollably. Then she'd look at the twins' scores, barely passing even when combined, grab the nearest feather duster, and begin her loving education. Afterwards, I'd comfort the twins, telling them grades weren't the most important thing in Daddy's eyes as long as they grew up healthy. Leo and Annie became increasingly dependent on me, sometimes even urging me to divorce Sarah. They naively assumed I'd fight for their custody and wouldn't control their lives like Sarah did. Every night, Sarah cried in bed, accusing me of favoritism, of only focusing on Lily while ignoring her children's decline. She also tried initiating intimacy. Since my rebirth, touching Sarah disgusted me. I hadn't been intimate with her in years. Looking at the elaborately wrapped head of the woman before me, I pushed her away in revulsion. "Look at the state of you. Just seeing you makes me sick. Go to sleep. Stop having ridiculous ideas." I switched off the light, but not before catching the unrestrained distortion in Sarah's eyes. I started using working late as an excuse, often staying away from home. Lily started boarding school when she entered middle school, leaving the twins alone with Sarah daily. Sarah's temper grew increasingly erratic, not just because of her hair. My hired private investigator in Austin photographed David having dinner with another woman, gallantly pulling out her chair and holding an umbrella for her. The woman was actually a client, but in Sarah's eyes, David had betrayed her. She became paranoid, constantly calling David to check up on him. My PI was thorough, managing to temporarily acquire David's phone and block Sarah's number. During this period, Sarah was a ticking time bomb. Seeing her own children resemble David so closely, she lashed out at them. I received multiple complaints from neighbors about the constant fighting, saying the mother seemed to be beating the children daily. They threatened to call the police if it continued. I received desperate messages from Leo and Annie. I just sent some money and said Daddy was too busy with work to come back right now. Gradually, the two kids started staying out all night. Sarah found them at an internet cafe, playing games with classmates and friends. She dragged them out with a feather duster, screaming obscenities. Leo and Annie flushed crimson, feeling the eyes of everyone around them mocking them. In the past life, Sarah had always maintained a gentle, sophisticated motherly image while I played the strict father, monitoring their studies, weight, and academics. Sarah just spent money on herself and offered occasional verbal concern, but that minimal concern was perceived as love by the twins. Last time, Sarah built her loving mother persona by stepping on me. This time, I'd use the same tactic to make her pay. Having lost face, the children completely turned against Sarah. They came to my office crying about how Sarah treated them. All it took was one hot pot meal for me to make these ungrateful brats eternally grateful. Sarah's mood improved recently because David returned. She started meeting him secretly, becoming bolder, even bringing him home. Calculating the time, I messaged Leo and Annie asking them to bring some of my things to my office. Terrified I'd abandoned them, the kids rushed home, only to walk in on a shocking scene. They hadn't seen David in a long time. Sarah hadn't wanted the twins to meet their biological father, but I knew in the past life she used family trips during holidays as a cover for their family reunions. So now, whenever holidays came, I signed the kids up for summer camps or sent them to my parents' place in the countryside. As long as the kids had fun, they didn't care. Consequently, Sarah never got a chance to take the twins away. Leo and Annie had forgotten what their biological father looked like. Seeing the situation now, they lunged at the couple. Sarah and David were mid-passion, clothes discarded. Caught by their children, David scrambled to cover himself with whatever clothes he could grab. But the twins were surprisingly strong. Their weight had ballooned over the years and they could now fight back against Sarah's blows. Annie especially had a loud voice and started yelling, "Mom, what are you doing? How could you betray Dad?" Sarah tried to clamp a hand over Annie's mouth, but Annie was stronger, dodged her, and even started recording with her phone. The twins had long wanted me to divorce Sarah. They wouldn't miss this golden opportunity. It was a Saturday, so most neighbors were home. Annie's shouts attracted attention. Because the twins had left the door open in their shock, the neighbors got a clear view of the scene. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Seeing the crowd, Sarah scrambled back into the bedroom. I received Annie's message telling me to come home quickly and prepare myself. I was, of course, delighted by this turn of events. Arriving home, I found a crowd gathered outside my door. Feigning confusion, I asked what happened. Leo and Annie looked at me indignantly, saying, "Mom betrayed you." "Dad, we're on your side." The neighbors, eager for gossip, lingered. I saw the fully dressed Sarah and David. Covering my mouth in mock surprise, I exclaimed, "Brother-in-law? How could it be you?" The term brother-in-law made the onlookers' eyes gleam even brighter. David forced a laugh. "Hey, it's all a misunderstanding." But he never expected his own daughter to expose him. "It's no misunderstanding. I have pictures of them naked and hugging." She showed me the photos. "Dad, you have to divorce this shameless woman." Yeah, Leo chimed in. I put on a face of disbelief and heartbreak. I can't believe it, what they said before the wedding was true all along. "Sarah, let's get a divorce." News of Sarah's affair spread through Dallas like wildfire. Neighbors started warning me, pointing out how much the twins resembled David, urging me to be careful not to raise someone else's kids. But Leo and Annie were still dreaming of a future free from Sarah's control, neglecting their studies, spending their days eating and playing games. Lily rushed back when she heard. However, Annie disliked her pretty older sister who outperformed her in every way. Believing for years that I favored the twins, Annie had taken over Lily's room while she was away. Lily returned to find her room messier than a pigsty. Even the usually gentle Lily lost her temper. Annie was nonchalant. "Go ahead, tattle. Mom's gone now. Let's see who takes your side." Hearing this, Lily's expression grew complex. She looked at Annie's clueless face with pity, which only wounded Annie's fragile pride. "What's with that look? Believe it or not, I'll make Dad kick you out." Leo, however, seemed quite fond of his pretty older sister, though he usually followed Annie's lead. One day, I came home to find an elderly couple at the door, Sarah's parents. They looked at Leo and Annie with disgust. These traditional old folks were furious that David had gotten their daughter pregnant before marriage. They had disapproved of the relationship from the start, demanding they break up. But Sarah got pregnant and insisted on keeping the babies. After Leo and Annie were born, the grandparents dumped the kids on David and quickly arranged a marriage for Sarah. Coincidentally, I was the unlucky guy who took her in. The grandparents considered these grandchildren a disgrace, but their daughter was now a recluse. I had sent a DNA test result to their house, demanding they take the children back, stating I wouldn't continue being a fool. Knowing they were in the wrong, they reluctantly came with me. Seeing me, Annie tried to run into my arms, but I easily sidestepped her. A flicker of disappointment crossed Annie's face, but she quickly tilted her head up, pointing at Lily. "I just used sister's room for a bit, and she yelled at me. 'Daddy, can you please just keep me and brother? Let Mom take sister.'" I chuckled softly. I'm afraid that won't work. Annie pouted. Why not? Raising 3 kids is too much for you, Daddy. Who said anything about 3 kids? From now on, I only need to raise one. I walked over to Lily, smiling reassuringly. Lily wisely kept quiet. But Annie questioned me incredulously. Daddy, what do you mean? You don't want me and brother anymore? Why? I produced the DNA report. Because I discovered I've been raising someone else's children all these years. I just wonder if you two knew Sarah was your biological mother and your father is David. Leo and Annie tried to force nervous smiles, but their faces were too stiff. Annie ran to my side, crying, but we've always thought of you as our real father. Is blood that important? Daddy, we want to live with you. That woman doesn't deserve to be called Mom. Her grandmother couldn't stand it anymore. No matter how bad Sarah was, she had carried these twins for 10 months. Furious, she grabbed Annie's hair and slapped her. Anyone can criticize your mother except you too. You ungrateful brats. Don't you realize who she became like this for? Annie, only ever hit by Sarah, who never hit hard, glared venomously at her grandmother, making the old woman step back in fear. Take these 2 children back. Just looking at them reminds me of the horns on my head. Annie kept crying, begging me not to abandon her. Leo remained relatively calm. After they all left, Lily quietly started cleaning the house. Neighbors came over under the guise of comforting me, trying to pry for information. I acted heartbroken, seemingly reluctant to talk, but managed to reveal everything, both relevant and irrelevant. Sarah hid at home for days, afraid to go out. David waited on her hand and foot, but Sarah's mind grew twisted. She started hitting and cursing David frequently. With the twins back, the small 3-bedroom apartment felt cramped. Leo and Annie blamed David for losing their home and despised their biological father. David had always longed for a real family, which was why he'd willingly taken the kids to Austin back then. But he knew children needed a stable family, so he'd painfully let his kids call another man dad. He missed them terribly over the years. He and Sarah often fought about not seeing the children. Now, with them right there, David wanted to give them the world. But Leo and Annie weren't easily appeased. They started tormenting David in various ways, making him run 30 miles to buy specific breakfast buns, climb a tall tree to fetch bird eggs. David always ended up looking miserable. Leo and Annie would take pictures of his pathetic state and send them to me. They claimed they were punishing the adulterous couple for me, hoping I'd cool down, constantly probing if I could fight for their custody. I saved everything. The kids were still wondering why David stuck by Sarah. I texted back, maybe because your mom is too beautiful. She has that charm. Annie had a quirk. She hated hearing me praise other girls. At home, I always said she and Lily were beautiful in their own ways. Maybe she'd grow up to be a movie star. But Sarah would always chime in, look at her, fat as a pig. How could she be beautiful? Sure enough, Annie fell silent for a long time after reading my message. During dinner, she accidentally spilled hot soup on Sarah's head. Scalded, Sarah yanked off her wig. David stared, dumbfounded, at Sarah's nearly bald head, disbelief in his eyes. A flash of triumph crossed Annie's face. Facing Sarah's curses, she pretended to be pitiful, shrinking into David's arms. Faced with his daughter's first show of affection, David naturally sided with her. All right, it was an accident. You're an adult, stop fussing with your daughter. Sarah couldn't believe the man who had always doted on her would say that. For the next few days, David slept on the living room couch. Unease flickered in Sarah's heart, though she couldn't pinpoint its source. One afternoon, as she stepped outside, her foot slipped. She pitched forward, straight towards a cactus pot. Her eyes widened in horror, trying to swerve, but the ground was too slippery, struggling was useless. Sarah's scream brought a smile of satisfaction to Annie's face. Leo looked uneasy. She's still our mother, after all. You didn't say that when you were finding the cactus for me, Annie retorted with a roll of her eyes. She patted Leo's back soothingly. Come on, bro. Once Dad cools down, we'll go back to live with him. I'm sure all these years of affection mean more than blood. Sarah was disfigured. She found out the kids were responsible. Even the day her children exposed her affair hadn't enraged her this much. Sarah chased Leo and Annie, hitting them frantically. But David wouldn't allow it, immediately grabbing Sarah. Seeing Sarah's now hideous appearance, however, he felt a wave of nausea. The grandparents, seeing their daughter bullied, joined the fray. Leo, acting under Annie's direction, accidentally pushed his grandmother too hard. Her head hit the corner of a table. She convulsed a few times and went still. The grandfather, seeing his wife die before his eyes, reached for the phone in anguish, wanting to call the police. Sarah snapped back to reality. They were still her children. She fell to her knees, begging her father not to call the police. In the end, the old man put the phone down, but no one noticed the look of determination in his eyes. The divorce decree came. Sarah initially wanted alimony, but I presented the DNA test, the falsified adoption papers from years ago, and the evidence captured by her own darling children. She was ultimately awarded nothing, leaving with nothing but the clothes on her back. Custody of the twins naturally went to her. The children were furious with this outcome, causing a scene right there in the courtroom. I looked at the heavily veiled Sarah. Seems your children prefer me after all. Back home, I kindly forwarded all the chat logs and photos Annie had sent me to both Sarah and David. It was a collection of Leo and Annie's pranks, showcasing David and Sarah's humiliation. Dad, look, this man is so stupid. I said I wanted buns from that place and he ran all the way there. I fed them straight to the dog when he got back. They're so shameless. If I were Grandpa and Grandma, I'd have kicked them out long ago. Dad, look how ugly this woman is with no hair. I don't know how that man can stand her. Countless messages like these. Sarah and David couldn't believe their own children had said such things. David's world crumbled. His children were his everything. To realize he was less than a clown in their eyes. Sarah stared intently at the screen at images of her own humiliation. Yes, if it weren't for these two, her affair with David would never have been discovered, her mother wouldn't be dead. Meanwhile, Leo and Annie were still dreaming of me taking them back, oblivious to the danger creeping closer. David and Sarah announced they were taking the twins on a trip to celebrate their new life together. Thrilled at the prospect of an outing, the twins forgot everything else and happily went along. They went hiking. During the climb, the two overweight kids complained endlessly about the miserable location. Dad was way better. He took us to amusement parks and arcades. Not like you two. So cheap. David patiently coaxed them. Just a little further. We're almost there. There's a big feast waiting for us at the top. Hearing about food, the twins reluctantly continued climbing. 3 hours later, they finally reached the summit, exhausted. But the mountaintop was bare. There was nothing there. Leo felt tricked and immediately demanded to go down. David said gently, "Just walk a little further ahead. You'll see it." Suspicious, the two walked towards the cliff edge, unaware of the malice behind them. Suddenly, they felt a strong push. It was too late as they fell. Sarah and David peered over the edge, only breathing sighs of relief when they saw the children hit the ground far below. They went straight to the police station, reporting with great sorrow that the children had accidentally fallen off the cliff while hiking. The case seemed straightforward, about to be ruled an accidental death, when I arrived, grief-stricken, and handed over the chat logs. "I know these kids," I told the police. "They hated exercise. Why would they climb such a high mountain?" Seeing the children's messages, the police grew suspicious. When asked why I sent the logs to Sarah and David, I replied calmly. I felt they must have done something wrong for the children to harbor such malice. I wanted them to reflect on their actions. After all, they were supposed to be a real family now. My explanation was flawless. Unexpectedly, Sarah's father also came to the station to report that his wife's death was caused by Leo accidentally pushing her. Now, whether motivated by revenge for the mother or resentment towards the children, the case could no longer be classified as accidental death. The police found searches on David's computer for treacherous locations nearby, clearly not just for hiking. Under intense questioning, the couple finally broke down and confessed to pushing the twins off the cliff. The case caused a national sensation. Everyone condemned Sarah and David. As for me, I faded perfectly into the background. I quit my job, took all my assets, and moved abroad with Lily, providing her with the best education. As for Sarah, let her spend the rest of her life consumed by regret.